A very good morning to all my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani and I warmly welcome all of you to StudyIQ. I hope you all are doing good. First of all, let me explain why I am late today. There was a big power cut down or blackout in my area since early morning. So because of this thing, I have to move out to a friend's place and I am not recording in my studio. But anyways, it's something better than nothing, isn't it? Yes, many times we find this sort of challenges as well, but we cannot sit down and cry. There is no way at all I am going to do that. I am going to find a solution, and that's what I have done today. But anyways, sorry about being a bit late today, and let's see what we have got on our table. Many articles, as you can see on your screen. This one is about right to dignity. It is talking about this Dalit issue that is going on, and it's not just an issue that is faced by Dalit. It basically presents us many important questions, and it also provides a bit of solution as well. So we'll go through it. Very important article in terms of your essay writing, in terms of your mains answer writing as well. Then you have one editorial. It is about parliament, the things that are going on in parliament or were going on in the parliament. At present it is adjourned. Both the houses are adjourned, sine and I. And then we have this smoke in the woods, very again important article. It's about forest and different acts and how things are going on for a very long period of time in our country as far as these forests are concerned. And then this, you have a case of triple talaq, why you should or why government should withdraw this bill that is presented by the government on triple talaq. And this one is about memorial for our heroes. So these are the articles, and let's quickly go through it, dear friends. We are already late. I don't want to be late anymore. And this is my Facebook page here. This is my Twitter handle from where you can download the PDF of today's discussion. StudyIQ provides pen drive and tablet courses for various different exams. And I saw a comment that one of you were trying to basically get in touch with our team. Yesterday was Sunday, but still, if you're struggling, then do write me down in Facebook message and I will pass you a number on which you can have a discussion with one of our teammates. So let's move on, and this one is about broken houses. As you can see on your screen, we have talked about this thing many times. It was in news, it was in form of article as well. So I'm not going into all those details, but from here we can take it forward. Now, two houses of the parliament are adjourned, sine and I, because this session basically is over. This budget session, the second part of budget session is over, and now it has been talked that before monsoon, right, pre-monsoon session will be called to sort out all the problems that we are, or all the bills that are stuck in the parliament. Now, while each side is at present, what you find is that while each side is basically blaming each other, the government is saying that we were open to have a discussion. The opposition is saying that the way things are going on or the way government is handling all the issues is not something right and things like that. So this is not the point. At the end of the day, you find, the government is run by political parties, isn't it? So that's a very fine line over there when it comes to political interest as well as your national interest. Of course, national interest are the most important ones, but it's difficult at present, right? Anyways, now the thing is, in the second part of the session, starting from March 5th, the productivity of both the houses was less than 10%. Can you imagine? Less than 10%. The other thing is that if you go through the list of bills that are passed so far in this session, then you find that in Rajya Sabha only one bill was passed, this payment of gratuity. And in Lok Sabha, 3 other bills were passed, but these bills were money bills. So I'm sure you know about this thing, that when it is a money bill, you don't need a green signal from Rajya Sabha. All you have to do is present this money bill to Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha can go through it, it can debate on it, but it cannot make any necessary changes, right? It has to be passed as it is. They can provide recommendations, but it is up to Lok Sabha whether it wants to accept recommendations or not. So money bills basically are, you can say, an upper hand in upper hand of Lok Sabha as far as this money bill is concerned. And the sad thing is, this is the scenario of the second portion or second phase of this budget session, but the whole budget itself was passed without discussion. And so far, if we calculate total hours, then we have lost 120 hours in each house. So we are talking about 240 hours in total. And you know this figure, we have talked about it, that somewhere around 2.5 lakh rupees to 3 lakh rupees, right? It costs 2.5 lakh to 3 lakh rupees to run, 3 lakh rupees per minute I'm talking about, right? Per minute to run our parliament. And if we are losing 120 hours, so you can imagine how many money or how many human hours or resources and other things that we have lost here. The other thing is, it's not just about quantity. Of course, this big figure matters, right? Because it is coming from the hard-earned money, from our money that is contributed in terms of tax and other things by all of us. But at the same time, right, the quality of interaction is coming down, is falling down. And a couple of days ago, I was having this discussion in PIB analysis. If you want, then you can go through that discussion, right? If you want, then I can provide you a link as well if you want to go through it. But the thing is, what we are seeing from last many years is that this is a trend that is been followed by different political parties and different groups. And this is something that is not good for our democracy at all. We are talking about parliament. Parliament is considered as temple of our democracy. And if we are seeing this sort of things, if no discussions are taking place, means basically what you are seeing is that in the parliament, these MPs, right, they will shout out and they will try to project themselves in these cameras and other things. And then you find them later on, they are doing good logical debate on a news channel. So this is very strange, very, very strange. And then they are taking this Twitter and social media and explaining their points. This is not acceptable at all. With this, dear friends, moving on to another item, inclusion and the right to dignity. Basically, it is talking about this SCST, Prevention of Atrocities Act. Now, we know it very well why it is in news or why we are discussing this thing, because Supreme Court recently took a stand on this thing. It provided with some changes, and this was taken very badly by many people in our country. We saw this 9 people have passed away so far or killed. Properties are damaged and things like that. So it was a big thing. It was a big thing. But the thing is, the big question is why? Why a vulnerable community took to the streets? And is it just about vulnerable community? Is it just limited with the SC/ST castes only or communities only? Isn't it a matter of our society or our nation? We have to think about it. We may be coming from any different caste, right? It doesn't really matter nowadays, because those days are gone, and this caste system will fade away eventually. It may sound strange at present, but if you observe the things now, I'll give you just one example, right? Earlier on, you know, this thing was going on in our society, that people will not eat. There were few groups of people, right, or in different parts of our country. I'm sure you might have heard about that higher castes will not eat food that is served by lower caste. Just one example, right? Which is, of course, totally wrong. It is a very draconian thing. In today's era, this sort of vichars or this sort of thoughts have no place in our society, because we have got constitution, and as per constitution, everyone is equal. Now, if you go to a restaurant nowadays, and if you see street food or any other places, good restaurant, bad restaurant, expensive one, not so expensive one, you don't know who your chef is, isn't it? You don't know who your waiter is. You don't know his caste or from which family he's coming from, etc., isn't it? So this thing has gone away. We never think about this thing, do we? But this is the thing. These are the changes. But when we see this sort of things, then you have media and other people who want to inject this thing in your mind, that all these things are done by this SC/ST people. They are creating troubles and things like that. But it's not just about them. It's about our society. We need to take it from this angle. Now, of course, it is time to reflect, because we have seen many this sort of incident. We have Rohit Vemula case, then we have this Gujarat case, Una, a place in Gujarat, then we have recently this Bhim Koregaon battle and other things have taken place in recent past. Now the thing is, we have got all these laws, we have got policies, we have got many good books published by many different people, like you have Ambedkar's biography, and I can go on and on. There is a long list of good work, literary work, and then you have civil society as well, people who are working for a just society. Everything is helping us, no doubt, in reforming our society and getting rid of this caste-based discrimination that is still prevalent in our society. We still find there are people in different parts of our country. There are some villages as well, many villages in fact. You have this system that if people from higher caste, if they are out on the street, then people from lower caste have to bow down and things like that. I'm not sure whether you have heard about it, but I'm sure this sort of things, they do take place. If you travel throughout India, then you will come across many this sort of weird rituals. But this sort of disrespect basically is of course injustice. At the same time, it demoralizes and diminishes a human being. It basically erodes the confidence of that particular community. The other thing is that if we think about this whole thing that is going on, right, we find that we have in fact failed when it comes to creating a secure and a just society. We as Indians, we have failed in providing this sort of protection or equal platform to our fellow citizen. The other thing is that if we observe or if we go through this movements in pre-independence India, then we find that people used to fight against injustice. It was not about just caste. Yes, we have seen many cases of this thing, but overall, if you see the big picture, then you will find that people from all different backgrounds, they could be coming from different, speaking different language, different caste, different upbringing, economically different, and culturally and other things, but then as well, they were one, and they fought against this injustice that was carried out on our country. And now after independence, we are seeing this situation in independent India, and at the same time we are dreaming to become a superpower. But superpower is not just about your missiles and your GDP. It is more about how just your society is, how you treat people who are not that capable. And all these things, they matter. But nowadays we have this, a film of money and finance in front of our eyes, and everything is basically, you can say, judged based on how much money you are making and things like that. But if you think about it, then you will also find this thing that people who are rich, even if they are coming from a SC/ST background, if they have money, then they will have respect. And generally you will also find this thing that you could be coming from any different background, but if you are very, very poor, if you are just surviving, then as well you won't have that respect in society. So this is a very sad scenario, and this article is rightly asking us right questions, as well as it is also providing us a solution. And the only solution, the gist is, in a nutshell, I can say that everyone has to work together. When we find this sort of injustice going on against any person, then we cannot say that this is happening to a Dalit. It is not my concern. No, it is our concern, because this thing is happening with one person today. It may happen to you tomorrow or your loved ones tomorrow. And at that point of time, you will find the same thing. People would be saying that it is nothing, this sort of things, or this thing has not happened with me, so I don't really care. This sort of attitude will not help us at all. If we want justice, if we want to live in a just society, then we have to stand up for our fellow citizen without caring about his or her caste and community background. So I hope things are clear here. Moving on to another item. This is about smoke in the woods. Now the thing is, let me give you a gist of this article. It is providing us with different, you can say, laws or policies. Now, first one is this forest policy that was basically, this forest laws were created somewhere in 1950s, and then we revised it in 1988, and today we are in what, 2018. So we are talking about what, 30 years has already passed since we last revised our forest policy. So definitely it is an overdue. Now the thing is, the new forest policy 2018 that we have is again not up to the mark. It is not able to address all the things that are a big challenge for us in today's era. Now this is a very important line that I found in this article, and I must insist you guys to note it down. Of course, many of you would be downloading this PDF on regular basis, so make sure you keep this figure in your mind, that Indian forests, right, they support livelihood of 250 million people. 250 million people, directly or indirectly, they benefit, or their livelihood is dependent on the quality or our forests. And the better the quality of forest, the better their livelihood will be, because they get firewood, fodder, bamboo, beedi leaves, and many other products, honey and medicinal plants and other things from forests. The other thing is, when it comes to timber, wood, then the whole money, or you can say the big chunk, goes to state treasury, because timber is basically, you can get timber once, for that you have to get a green signal from your state government. The other thing, that forests also regulate stream flows and sediments, and it also helps in, of course, biodiversity and carbon sequestrations and other things. Now if you go back in British era, this colonial or Raj era, then the main focus of Raj was to make maximum products, or to generate as much as revenue possible from our forests, and the people living in forest were considered as laborers, rather than treating them as people with good knowledge about forest or traditional knowledge, and this sort of things were ignored by this colonial rulers. But same thing happened with our people, or after independence, our attitude was same. Of course, because of constitution and new rules and regulations, we cannot place all those bans that were applied by this British government or British India government. But situation of our tribal people or people living or dwelling in forest was not that good, and communities, local communities, even today we know it very well that they are suffering. They don't have electricity and other basic things in many areas. Things are improving, no doubt. Then we have this this post 1988 experience, but before that, let me tell you some good things about this 1988's forest policy. It talked about this this need for forest dependent communities. It is good in this way because it is talking about this environmental stability. During this period of time in 80s, we came to know about all this. It was this era when we came to know about all this climate change and other things. Much work was done, or initial period you can say was this phase. Then the people's involvement in protecting and regenerating forests, it was considered in this forest policy, and so things were good. It was was looking good in this forest policy. But then what we find is, after that, if we go through the experience or the rules and regulations, then we find that it is more barking and no bite, because then after that in 1990s we talked about this joint forest management. Now this joint forest management is talking about involvement of this local community in protection of forest, which sounds very good, but when it comes to autonomy and jurisdiction or powers of this forest community or this gram panchayat level of forest people, then you find that the law is not providing them any sort of powers. Many times what we find is that when money is over, then this whole project of conserving forest and other things will come to a choke hold. So this was this is something that we are seeing since 1988. Then we have had this Forest Rights Act, FRA, of 2006, and its community forest resource provisions gave communities rights to both access and manage forest. Bit good here, and we have a good example of Odisha, and remember this name as well, Adivasis of Niamgiri in Odisha. Basically you find bauxite here, and because of their religious beliefs, they kept a ban on this bauxite mining from the hills. So this was a good example. But Supreme Court came out with this thing called net present value. It is about calculating how much damage you are doing to it. But this money will not go to local community. It will go in government's pocket. So here you find injustice. The other thing is, now when we are talking about this, the main reason why we are discussing this whole article is because of this new policy that is going to come out, this forest policy of 2018. And in this forest policy of 2018, it is talking about public-private partnership. It is talking about, this draft is talking about investment coming from private sector in the development of forest. Now, when we say development of forest, here the main purpose will be, or purpose is, to create plantations. Plantations, of course, we have talked, couple of days ago we were talking about this thing that you cannot compete natural forest, right? Man-made forests are not a good solution. In cities, yes, we can have more trees, we can do that thing, it helps, but when it comes to forests, we still don't have that scientific expertise, and you can understand very well that we cannot compete this nature. Millions and millions of years of development of this forest, and if you think that we can change it in couple of years, means if we can build it in couple of years, then this is not going to help. And what will happen after this PPP is basically that money will first of all go in corporate hands. The second thing is that we have had our experience with this replacement of trees. We had this natural oak forests were replaced by this pine monocultures. Then we had this natural sal forests were replaced with teak, and wet evergreen forest were replaced with this eucalyptus. And what we found is basically they destroyed the diversity, the streams were dried, and later on the livelihood of the people who are dependent on forest was affected as well. Couple of days ago we also talked about this thing, this CAMPA, compensatory afforestation money, isn't it? And our ministers are speaking loud about this thing. They are saying that we have got 50,000 crore rupees. But the thing is, the more money you are getting in this CAMPA Act or CAMPA fund, the more forests are getting destructed. And just to keep a promise that we have, just to keep our promise under this 2015 Paris Agreement, we are going for, it looks like we are going for this PPP, so that we can plant more trees and we can absorb more carbon dioxide. Again, this is going to be a quick solution, because once you destroy the biodiversity, then you cannot bring it back. Moving on to another item, this is about a case to withdraw the triple talaq bill. Saira Bano versus Union of India. This is a very famous case as far as triple talaq is concerned. Then the problem of this article is talking about this legal point. Now, talaq or divorce is basically a civil matter, and what government is trying to do is government is trying to include this 3-year imprisonment. So basically, there is no crime when you are taking a divorce. Of course, there is no crime. Now, when you can argue that what about triple talaq? Triple talaq is a very inhumane thing, as far as means it is something that is not right in terms of a lady or a woman, right? All of a sudden, if someone is, or if her husband is texting or WhatsApping this thing that talaq, 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 and then you get a divorce. Now, this is, first of all, we have to understand that Supreme Court has clearly stated that this is not valid at all. So, if someone is using this method, then as well, technically, you don't get divorce in this way. The other thing is, divorce is a civil matter, and you cannot imprison someone. You cannot, a civil matter cannot be, legally speaking, you cannot say that this is a crime, right? First of all, this is not accepted. So when it is not accepted, when it is not valid, then talaq has not taken place, and it is not a crime as well. The other thing is, there are some ladies group out there, they want to include this thing under this emotional abuse. Now, emotional abuse is defined clearly. Of course, we can understand that when, means, if if a divorce is taking place, I'm talking about a normal divorce, right? I'm not talking about this triple talaq or text messaging divorce kind of thing. No. Whenever a divorce is taking place, then of course it is going to be painful for both the parties, judging by the culture, and it applies to every culture. It's not about our culture. Divorce or breakup is definitely a painful thing for both the parties, for a man and for a woman. Now, emotional abuse is defined clearly under this protection PWDVA Act of 2005. And if you are saying that, means if there are some groups out there, if they are arguing that it should be included under this emotional abuse, then this is not going to help us, because it will basically imprisonment, or under this PWDVA you have this, either a person can be, a man can be imprisoned for 1 year, or he could be fined for 20,000 rupees, or both can be done on, or both can be allotted or awarded to a man under this PWDVA Act. But first of all, we have to understand this thing, that there are many innocent men out there as well, and law is equal for, and it should be equal for, both men and women. If something is done wrong by someone, then of course that person should be punished. But when you include this emotional abuse, if you are arguing for emotional abuse, and then what will happen is that you will find so many husbands behind the bar. So this is something that we don't want to see. The other thing is innocent ones. I'm talking about, we don't want to see innocent people behind the bar. The other thing is Article 21 talks about that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by the law. Now, this triple talaq bill, in its current form, it is having this 3 years imprisonment thing, or giving or terming this triple talaq as a crime. The problem is, or the problem that will be faced by the government, of course, is this judicial review. Because if you go through many cases, we have this case of Justice K.S. Puttaswamy, we have this Menka Gandhi versus Union of India, in which Supreme Court has clearly stated that law means a reasonable law. It does not mean that if a law is created by the parliament, that itself means that that law is a good piece of law. No, it should be reasonable, and if it is not reasonable, then there are every chances that Supreme Court or the courts will struck it down in its judicial review power. So this is something that center should take into consideration. There are many voices out there, and there are many technical people out there. They have argued this thing, that you cannot term a civil thing into a crime. Moving on to last article, it is about our heroes. Now we have war memorials, but most of them were, like the biggest one that we have in our country, in this Delhi Gate is India Gate, is in Delhi, is was created by British. And after that, we have many chalks, we have many streets in different cities after our soldiers, our brave heroes. But now we are creating a big one in Delhi, and this is good as well, because here, this whole article, the most important thing that you find here is this thing, that memorials are not just a society's way of honoring the men and women who have fought for its sovereignty, but also of helping a new generation understand how hard fought freedom is, so that new generation will not take the freedom as granted. And the problems that we have discussed today, may it be forest, may it be this SC/ST issue, or any other things, you will find that somewhere down the line, you will find this thing that we have taken our freedom as granted, and because of this thing, we are not appreciating our diversity, and we are seeing this sort of things. But memorials are necessary. It is not just about, it is not just for the country, but it is also creating this culture in our country, that a family, right, a family that has lost his son or daughter, they will appreciate this gesture, and the future generation as well will be inspired from this thing, that yes, there is no harm in sacrificing your life for our country. So again, hats off to all our soldiers, and now we move on to our news items. Non-available warrant has been issued against Nirav Modi, and means CBI officials. They have also asked Hong Kong to get in touch with or provide this person who approved this transaction in Hong Kong branch of Allahabad Bank. Pakistan plans to permanently ban JUD because of this grey list. Now, it is, I believe, more sort of like a makeup, because this is not the first time, and you know it very well that these people, Hafiz Saeed and other people, they have deep political connection and they have supporters and other things. So this is just a makeup done by, a technical makeup done by Pakistan, just to present this thing that yes, they are doing something about it. Television journalist has been shot outside his home in Ghaziabad. Now we have to wait and watch whether this was because of his job or whether it was a sort of personal angle. Then China has objected India's transgression in this portion here, in Arunachal Pradesh portion, and India has rejected China's complaint. And beg your pardon, Oli is the Prime Minister of Nepal. He is here in India, KP Sharma Oli, and he has talked about this collaboration between Indian university and Nepalese universities, so that the way Indian universities have helped in transforming agriculture sector of our country, it can help Nepal as well, because predominantly both countries, Nepal and India, are this agriculture based economies. Syria, there are reports that chemical attacks chemical attacks were conducted in Syria and 49 people have lost their lives. This is a big issue. German attacker. At present, it looks like the statement that has been given by this German police is that that person was mentally unfit. So this is a big problem nowadays. We are seeing this thing. And then you have this privatization. Grameen Bank founder Muhammad Yunus, who is from Bangladesh, very famous person. He has worked for this Grameen Bank, a very successful model of this self-help group thing in Bangladesh, and he has said that this is not a permanent solution of privatizing our public banks, because if you go through this private banks, then you cannot say, like, some private banks are of course performing very well in our country, but if you see the global scenario, then you find that it's not that they are doing something that is out of the box or exceptional performance has been registered by private banks. No, this is not a solution. Rather than that, we should come out with laws, and we should come out with this multiple checkups and other solutions through which we can stop these frauds. We have found 4 kingfisher species from Andhra Pradesh Krishna Wildlife Sanctuary. Here is the name of all these species, and here are these beautiful birds out here. So very colorful, right? Isn't it? Very pleasing to the eyes as well. But sadly, we find this sort of pictures as well in today's newspaper front page. Stubble burning is going on, and we cannot just blame farmers, right? We have to show them this path of generating wealth out of waste. And I came out with a special video lecture on this thing, on stubble burning, and I have provided this solution. I have basically discussed this wonderful formula, and it works as well. Goats, right? Goats are super. They have this super digestive system, and if you feed goats, then they will chew everything that you find, this unwasted unneeded things, this waste that we call, it can chew it down, and then you can have goats can give you meat, it can give you a skin as well, leather and other things that you can produce. So it is a win-win situation, and allied sector in farming can be discussed or can be taken into consideration. And this is you go through that special video lecture, you will come to know more about it. These are your answers here. Germany, you can see here, and this is your subsonic, transonic, and some extra things as speed of sound. 1, 2, 3, 6 or 1, 2, 3, 7, basically, depending on the temperature and other things as well. And then you have this 3 answer here. That's everything in today's discussion, dear friends. If you have found a little bit of disturbances or voice quality going up and down, then I'm sorry about it. As I told you that I'm not in my studio at present because of this power blackout. So it's still, there is a blackout. I am at other place. Anyways, I hope things are all right. So far, so good. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please do give your like if you have learned something out of today's discussion. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.